Warm greetings for video session 3 of module 1. In this video session, we'll cover the software process models. In that we have three types of models: waterfall model, incremental model and spiral model. Before covering the software process model, we'll see what do you mean by the software process. Software process is nothing but set of activities required to develop a software product. So it's nothing but a set of activities before designing the software. We have a set of activities that has to be followed. What are that activities? Software specification, software design and implementation, software validation, software evolution. What is software specification? It defines what the system should do. It defines what the system here nothing but the software, what the software should do is been defined in the specification. So next, software design and implementation. So you got the specification in the first step, then with the help of the specification, the software engineering team, design and implementation team start designing as well as implementation, nothing but start coding the requirement according to the requirement given in the specification. So once that software design and implementation team has been designed the requirement of a specification, then the next team, that is software validation team, will start check whether it is met the requirement of a customer, or it checks whether it meets the requirement on the what is given in the specification. The next team, that is software evolution, whenever the customer required any changes in future, or if it is required any requirement during the development, that is evolution team will take care of the changes that is required for the customer, and it will, according to the customer needs, it will be get evolved. That is what the software evolution team do. So these are the four fundamental activities in the software process. What is that? So one is software specification, second one is design and implementation, third one is validation, fourth one is evolution. So next, it is we see the plan, driven and agile process. In the agile process, in the plan driven process is nothing but it is been planned in detail without any changes of the customer. The customer doesn't want any changes. At that time, the plan driven process are applied. Where agile process, when it is being used, so it's an incremental process where whenever the customer is keep on want to do the changes in the software, at that time the software engineering will apply agile process. If the customer doesn't want any changes, at that time they apply plan driven process. In practice, most practical, that is in practice, most process includes both plan driven as well as agile process approach. So plan driven as well as agile process, when they are going to use, you come to know, you have understood, right? So one is plan driven process is applied when there is no required for the customer doesn't require any changes. So at that time plan driven process is been applied. So agile process, so customer wants changes each and every step, at that time agile process is applied. Software process models. So you have three types of software process model. One is waterfall model, incremental development, spiral model. So what is actually model? So when you start constructing any houses, so before you start constructing a houses, you require one blueprint. That is nothing but a process. So model is being, some of the buildings require a model also. So that model according to the customer requirement, whether it is there or not, is being checked in the model. So the same way, whenever you start developing a software, the software process there, that is a process is nothing but a blueprint. That is one is software specification, design and implementation, and validation, and fourth one is a evolution. The same way here also software process model. So depending upon the requirement customer requirement or a system, so the customers or whether customer software requirements, software engineer will select which model is preferable for the customer. So here waterfall model, incremental development and spiral model are there. So waterfall model is nothing but a plant driven model. So plant driven model I have explained in the previous session, that is previous slide. The plant driven model is there is no changes is required by the customer. At that time waterfall model is applied. Incremental model is nothing but it's a agile process as well as plant driven both is been implemented in the incremental model, incremental development model. As well as third one is a spiral model, is a risk driven model, where here you apply both what is a plant driven as well as agile process method. So waterfall model, you can see the waterfall model, why the name came waterfall. So it is flowing from top to bottom. So this is how it is following, right? So why it is waterfall model? So requirement, definition, these are the various stages in the waterfall model. So you can see the joke falls or any of the falls. If it is falling from top to bottom, it means that the bottom water cannot go back to the top position, isn't it? So that's why it says waterfall. So once the requirement what is given by the customer is being set, then only it moves to the next step. So when it is go to the next step, that is system design. So whenever once again customer comes and says there is any changes, then it doesn't apply because it has been moved to the next step. That's why it says waterfall model. So in this stage, in this waterfall model, we have 5 stages: requirement definition, system design and software design, implementation and unit testing, integration and system testing, operation and maintenance. These are the 5 steps in the waterfall model. So you can see the requirement analysis and definition, system and software design, implementation and unit testing, integration and system testing, operation and maintenance. So what is requirement analysis and definition? Here the customer says the change whatever the requirement is required for the development of a product or tool is been explained to the software engineer and is been given the year, requirement analysis and definition. So customer comes and talk to the software engineer for the development of a product. So the requirement team will analyze the requirement of the customer and analyze the requirement of the customer, and they will start producing the document for the next team. You have a team, requirement definition team, system and software design team, implementation and unit testing team, integration and system testing team, operation and maintenance team. There are 5 separate teams each stages. Here requirement, according to the requirement of the customer, is been collected by this team. After collection of the and it is been documented, it is written back to the system and software design team. In this system and software design team, they will start designing as well as designing, that is system designing as well as software designing. That is what are the hardware is required, as well as software designing means which tool is applicable. All those things will be taken care in the second stages, this team. So and each stages the document is done. So first team, it is been documented what are the requirement of the customer. Second team, it is design of the software, design of the system design as well as software design. What are the software is required for the design for the development of a product, and what are the hardware it is required is been taken care in this team, and it has been documented and it's returned back to the next team, that is implementation and unit testing. So implementation start coding the requirement according to the requirement of the system and software design team, and separate for the design of a product, it requires number of modules, and each modules is done a testing, that is unit testing is done, and it is also documented and it is returned back to the integration and system testing. So integration testing is whatever the unit testing is, whatever there will be number of modules, and it will be integrated and it is been tested as a system, and it has been documented and it is returned back to the operation and maintenance. In the operation and maintenance team, what it does, it is checks whether the requirement of the is been done according to the customer requirement, and it is delivered to the customer. So this is what actually waterfall. So once the product has been, once the document is been sent to the next stages, then if any changes is required by the customer, it is not possible, because it has been documented and it is sent back to the next stages. So this is what the drawback of the waterfall model. So once the planned software or planned by the customer is given to the software engineering, it is start developing the software engineering start developing the product. So if the customer requires any changes in the waterfall model, it is not possible. So the main drawback of the waterfall model is the difficult of accommodating the changes after the process is underway. So this is what I say. So once it is been start processing, then if the customer required any changes, it is not possible. So this is what the drawbacks, difficult of accommodating the changes after the process is underway. In principle, phases has to be completed before moving on to the next phases. Obviously, why it is not possible? Because it has been documented. So this process, this phases has to be start working, means first this process has to be completed, and this process start working means this process has to be get completed. So once it is completed, then only it starts working. So something like a water flowing from top to bottom. So once it is been flowing from top to bottom, it is not at all possible to go reverse back, right? So that is what it says, the waterfall model is flowing from top to bottom. The main drawback of the waterfall model is the difficult of accommodating changes after the process is underway. In the principle, the phases has to be completed before moving on to the next phases. So what are the waterfall model problems? Of course, the main problem is stages make it difficult to respond to the changing of the customer requirement. In the beginning itself I said, so if any changes wants to be by the requirement of by the customer, it is not possible in the waterfall model. Therefore, the model is only appropriated when it is appropriate or when it is suitable, when the requirements are all well understood. When the requirements are all well understood, and changes will be fairly limited during the design process. If the customer doesn't require any changes at that moment, then this model can be applied. So next is a incremental development model. So increment development model. So what actually incremental development model? You can see here, the person thinks that one that is a image has to be required like this. So in the first stage he can recognize only, he can start developing, he can design only the face. In the second stage he can design part of the original images. In the third stage, this will incrementally he start developing the product. So customer says, I want only one small images without any other part. Then in the second images, second time he says, no, I require this also, and this part also. And third stage he says, I require entire image, he says. So at that's what here you can see here, customer keep on informing the requirement specification. So according to that, software engineers can start developing the product. That we can see that we can do it in a incremental development. That is incrementally can be develop the product as per as the customer requirements. So here also we have the various stages, that is specification, development and validation. In the you can see here specification, that is initial version of a product is been designed according to the specification. Then if any changes is required, then by the customer, it can be taken back once again from the original initial version and do the changes and start developing the product. So in the year also the customer requires, you can see the customer says that requirement is required and these changes has to be done. All those is been done in the intermediate version. And next final, that is validation has been done. Validation means is according to the customer requirement whether it is been met the product. Then after that it is been released, the final version is be released. So this is what the block diagram of a incremental model. So incremental model benefit is, the main benefits are the cost of the changing customer requirement is reduced. Cost of the changing customer requirement is reduced. The amount of analysis and documentation that has to be redone is much less is required with the waterfall model. Yes. So in this previous model, in the waterfall model, each stages we have a separate each stages we have a documentation is required, whereas here the document is very less compared to the waterfall model. It is easier to get the customer feedback on the development work that has to be done. Customer can comment on demonstration of the software and see how much has been implemented. So here we can show the customer that is customer the software product whenever the customer wants to see whether it is been met according to the customer requirement, or if it is not, if at all not, then customer can talk to the specification team and he can suggest he wants some other changes in the software product. That can be done in the incremental model. More rapid delivery and deployment of useful software to the customer is possible, obviously. So because ultimately the software is always, it is helpful for the customer. So whenever if a customer wants any changes, if it is not able to done, then there is no use of the software. So in the incremental model that is possible. So that's what useful software to the customer is possible, and it is able to deliver in time also. So that is what, compared to the waterfall model, incremental model is more benefit than the waterfall model. The incremental development, there will be some problem as same as what we seen in the waterfall model. What is that? The process is not visible. Manager needs a regular deliverable to measure progress. If the systems are developed quickly, it is not cost effective to produce a document that reflects every version of the system. Cost effective to produce document that reflects every version of the system. The manager wants to see regularly what are the progress has been done, and that is not possible because its cost will be more, because if because document is not at all done, not done in the incremental model each step. So it's very difficult. So if it is required that type of that is document in each step, then it will be cost will be more compared to the waterfall model. System structure tends to degrade as new increments are added. Unless time and money is spent on refactoring to improve the software, regular changes tends to corrupt its structure. Incorporating further software changes becomes increasingly difficult and costlier. Of course, if there is any new changes or has to be done in the software, the regular changes regular changes is keep on changing as per as the requirement of the customer, then it will be corrupted. The actually that is original structure of the product will be get corrupted, and it will be compared to the waterfall model also, it increases, the cost will be increased, then it will be very difficult to restructure the software. So these are the problems what we can see in the increment development model. So third one is a Boehm spiral model. So Boehm spiral model is a spiral rather than the sequence activities with backtracking. So what we see in the waterfall model as well as incremental model, it's a sequence of such steps, but here it is not. It's a spiral rather than the sequence of activities with backtracking. So we can do the changes once if you move to the one step, and you can come back to the previous step and you do the changes, and you can go back to the next step. That's what it says in the Boehm spiral model, and one of the advantages. Each loop in the spiral represents a phases in the process. No fixed phases such as specification or design loops in the spiral are chosen depending upon what it is required. Risks are explicitly accessed and resolved throughout the process. Risk is nothing but even there may be some problem or there may be some wrong in the product, and that can be accessed and resolved throughout the process. So some problem in the specification or some problem in the design that can be solved, and there is you can go there is a result, and throughout the process there is there is no question of not possible. That's what one of the advantages in the spiral model. So you can see the spiral model diagram. So why it is called spiral? So here you can see these are all the 4 steps. One is, you can see here, specification, another one is a implementation, and another one is a validation, and another one is a evolution. So 4 steps, that is what to say, the 4 circle is there, no? First, second, third, fourth circle. So first circle is represented as a specification, second circle is represented as a development, and third circle is development represented as a validation, and fourth circle is represented as a evolution part. But here you can see here each step or each phases is being divided into 4 sectors. So even in the specification also you have it is been divided into 4 sectors. Even in the specific implementation and implementation as a design and implementation also have a 4 sectors, as well as validation is also having a 4 sector. Even in the evolution part is also having a 4 sectors. What actually it represents? So comparing to the all the 3 models, waterfall models, as well as incremental model, as well as spiral model, all the 3 models have their advantages as well as disadvantages. Depending upon the customer requirements, the software engineers can choose any one of the software process model, but most of the now there is a agile process that is being implementing nowadays in the software companies. But in your syllabus it is not it is included in model 4 or model 5. Only part of it is been included in the agile process. We'll see it in the next coming slides. So in the spiral model you can see the 4 it has been each phases has been divided into 4 sectors. One is object settings, second one is a risk assessment, and third one is a development and validation and planning. See here, don't get confused in this. See, specification, each spiral is represented the specific, there is one is specification stage, second one is implementation phase, third one is a validation phase, and fourth one is the evolution phases. But here also each phases is been divided into 4 sectors. One is object setting phase sector, and second one is a risk assessment and reduction sector, and third one is a development and validation, and fourth one is a planning. So in the specification also there will be some risk analysis. So concept of try to solve that problem. So there may be some according to the customer requirement is being given, and start doing some specification, and that's due to some during the specification there may some go wrong, and that has been rectified, and start implementing the implementation. So in the implementation also you have some type of risk analysis. That is risk analysis. See, you can see here in each of the phases you have some risk you come across some risk analysis, and that has been solved in the prototype 1, prototype 3. That is the problem has get solved, and the problem can be solved. It has been done through the some simulation part, or some model type is been designed and checked by the validation team, and that is what he says in the each sector. Then after that, in the validation will be done product design as well as design of validation and verification has been done. Then next in the that is what to say in the evolution part also you can see here that is accepting test, integration test, unit testing, code, detailed design, and so after testing all type of testing, it has been the product has been released to the customer. That is or it can be evolution part. That is next plan for the next product, or sorry, next changes in the as per as customer requirements. What we see here, don't get confused here. So each of the circle is represents a specification. That is one for inner circle is represents specification, and next circle is represented as the design and implementation, and the third circle is represents the validation, and fourth circle represents the evolution part. And each of the circle is being divided into 4 sectors. For example, if you consider specification, so specification is been designed means divided into 4 sectors. One is objective settings, second one is risk assessment and reduction, and third one is development and validation, and fourth one is planning. So what I am saying is the sector, it has been divided into sectors. So first one is object settings, second one is risk assessment and reduction, third one is development and validation, fourth one is planning. In the object setting, the specific object for the phases are identified. So the specific objects are identified in the review part. You can see here specific objects for the phases are identified. The risk assessment and reduction, whatever the problems are identified in the object settings are been assessed here in the second steps, and put it into to reduce the risk. See here, you can see here it has been identified, the risk is been identified, and start solving the problem, and that problem is been done either in the simulation part or some designing by some module wise. It is been solved, whatever the risk is been identified in the second sector. Development and validation. A development model for the system is chosen which can be carry of the generic model. So I so sure whether it is a design model or it may be a simulation part, can be designed, it can be checked in the development and validation. Then project is reviewed, and the next phase of the spiral is planned. So after, see, for all the activities, all this will be applied: object setting, risk assessment reduction, development validation, and planning. So for specification you apply object setting, risk assessment in the specification I am speaking, and development and validation, whether the customer requirement is met or not in the specification is been checked, and start doing planning for the next phases. In the next phases is nothing but the design and implementation. In the design and implementation also you are going to see the object setting, risk assessment reduction, development and validation, and planning. Here also after that is development and validation of the design and implementation has been done, then it's been planned for the next stages. Next stages what it is actually validation. In the validation also object setting, risk assessment, development validation, and planning. So next it is evolution also the same 4 steps been applied. So this is what we see in the spiral model. Compared to all the 3 models also been used in the market now, today's market, but it's been depending upon the requirement of the specification of the customer. But agile process is being most commonly used in most of the software companies. Agile process here is nothing but the customer start giving the requirement of the product to the software engineering, and software engineering start developing the product. So customer doesn't want that that is changes what is been informed to the customer to the software engineering. He requires some other changes. At that moment, software engineer can able to adopt the changes whatever that done by the customer. That's what we have seen in the agile process. So agile process is now commonly used by the software engineers. And so we'll stop this video session 3 here. So meantime, once you listen to the video, and if you have any doubt, please feel free to ask the doubt in the online session. Thank you.